So welcome everyone to the koi fish painting. For those that are new, I notice we have a bunch of new people. Welcome. My name is Anita Thompson of Art Venture Workshops, and I teach all ages for mostly libraries, but I do other things too, like I do a rec center, Autism Cares Foundation, Girl Scouts, birthday parties, all that kind of good stuff. Um, so tonight we are going to be painting this koi fish. It'll take approximately an hour and 30 minutes. It might take you less. It's step by step. We're going to be using our pencil with an eraser first. And I should also probably say that you will receive this recording at some point this week afterward. I send it to Warwick, or I'm sorry, now that I have Warwick Township on my brain. I send it to Warminster Library, and then they will send the link out, and then it will be available on my YouTube channel, and you'll find other free tutorials on there as well. And I'll remind you at the end, if you're interested, I will add my email, and you are free to take a picture and send me your lovely artwork, and also ask to be on my weekly newsletter. And I'll also let you know my YouTube channel. Anyway, we're going to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we are actually going to paint the background first. So we're going to paint the background first, and then we're going to be creating the fish. But what we want to do is create sort of an outline for the fish before we do that. That way, as we are creating or painting the background, since we're going to be doing strokes up and down, it will be okay to get some of those strokes inside the koi fish. Let me just let Amy in. Welcome, Amy. We just got started and we're recording. So I'm going to copy the supplies in the chat for you. We're just starting with the drawing part. Also, I just want to remind everyone, I have spotlighted my video, so you should be able to see it large. If you don't, you want to make sure to be on speaker view and not gallery view. You're welcome, Amy. All right, so what we're going to do, you know what, let me just move my camera a little closer here so that you can see. And if anybody has any questions, you can put those in the chat. So let's get started with the drawing. So we're going to use the middle of our canvas, obviously, and we're going to first do a curvy shape for the fish. We're going to make sure to leave room at the top, and our fish is going to sort of make a C curve in a sense. So let's start off right here at the top. I also want to mention before we do anything, make sure that you are drawing lightly. I always draw darker so you can see it on Zoom. So we're going to start in toward the upper right corner of our canvas, but obviously lower than that. And we're going to start off with the, oh, sorry, let me grab my other pencil with an eraser. We're going to start off with the flat part of the fish's nose here. And then we're going to go inward and start to curve around. Take your time. We're going to make that curve. And we're extending the tail towards the bottom right corner. Oh, let's see. Oh, how do you get the speaker view? Okay, so what you want to do is if you are on a computer, see, I'm on a oh, what do you call it? The other thing. But I have these little squares. And if you tap on the little squares, it will give you the option of speaker view or gallery view. And so you want to make sure to be on speaker view. The other thing you can do is you can tap on my square where it has the camera view. And if you tap it, I think that that will bring it to you. Does that make sense? And did that work? Upper right corner says view, select speaker. Yes. Thank you, Beth. I don't know if that worked for you guys. Okay. You might have, yeah, I apologize. I'm not sure exactly what you're on, but you want to make sure, you want to see if you can find where you can tap on the view so that it gets to speaker view. Anybody else?
It's an iPad, right, that she's on?
I think
Anita?
she's on a computer.
Oh.
Let me,
On an iPad, mine's in the upper right, but I
yeah,
don't know.
mine
Oh,
too.
wait, I got this. We're fixed now.
You're good?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yay. Thanks, everybody. Perfect. Okay. So, as I mentioned, we're going to curve around, and we want to make sure that we have enough room for the fins. So actually, I'm going to move mine over to the left just a little bit because I think I went a little bit too over to the right. So I'm just going to make mine just slightly to the left. And then we're now going to go back up over here and complete the shape of the body. So it goes outward a bit. And then as it's going down toward the belly and the tail, it's going to get thinner. So as you can see, my second line is really going towards the second line over here. And then we go like this. And then we can start drawing the shapes of our fins. And we are just going to be drawing some kind of basic shape of the fin. Gonna kind of look like that and curve inward like so. If for whatever reason you can't see the fins, just let me know. I think it's dark enough, but if not, just give me a holler in the chat. So staying here on the left side, we're also going to make the smaller fin. So we come down a little bit from here and we make the shape of the other fin. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of making like an outline. So it's going to kind of look like that. All right, and then we're going to come down to the bottom. Oops, let me let Audrey in. Welcome, Audrey.
Hi, Anita. I had a hard time getting the link.
Oh,
I did. They didn't send me the link, so I had to do this whole thing, and
Oh,
I finally got it.
no.
Sorry I'm late.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad you got in.
I'm real happy too. 'Cause I really look forward to this one. Okay.
Aw,
I'm in. I'm in.
yay. Well, I just recopied the information in the chat for you, and just take your time. This is being recorded as always. So we just started with the body and the two fins on the left, and now we're coming down here to the bottom and creating the tail shape. And so we're curving. Oops. Sorry. Okay, and I also like to sort of say a disclaimer and say that yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine. If you feel you want to add or subtract something, please do. Make it your own. Feel like that's the fun part. And so you should have something that looks a little bit like this. And then we're going to go on the right side and we're going to complete the fin over here. So we come down a bit and we start our fin and it goes right down. And again, we're doing an outline in a sense of the shape. So I'm just sort of looking at, the basic shape here of that fin. It goes in and out and then comes back up here to the top. And we do have a very tiny fin that is very translucent over here. I feel like this is I'm going to say it, I feel like this is a pretty simple, it's a simple drawing. I'm saying it. I'm also going to go in a bit closer. And now we're going to go inside and we're going to start with the eyes. So we're going to come here to the left side and we just make a little bit of a splotch there. And yet here on the right side, we come and make a little more of an oval. I was thinking a circle and I'm going, nope, nope, not circle, oval, like so. And we're going to start with the shapes inside. So we start off first with this shape. And again, it doesn't have to be perfectly looking like mine. It's something similar to this. We're going to now come over to the left side, right above where this fin is, and make another shape here. Like so. We're going to flip on over now to the right side, and we have a small little spot here, like so. And this is where we have one of the biggest spots. And we are going to start right up against the edge here. Kind of curl around. We're going to go outward. And just expand. Like so. And we do have another fin here in the middle, but we'll draw that after we complete this one. Oops, and you know what? I think I have to make my small fin, this one, just a little bit lower. So I'm going to do that. Or actually, I might have to make this part just a little bit smaller. Yeah, here we are. I went a little bit long with that shape. So I apologize. We want that shape to kind of stop a little bit past this fin. So I apologize that I led you astray. I was looking at my sample and also not really measuring. So I apologize for that. So we'll draw that right back on. So again, what I did was I made you probably extend it a little low, and it should actually be a little bit higher up. It should actually end not too far after this shape. So I'm going to give everybody the chance to straighten up the mistake I made you all make. Sorry about that. Now we're going to keep going with the shapes. Our next shape here is going to stretch towards the other side. And again, we'll go back and we will create this other long fin, but for now, we're going to make just the shapes of the orange shapes, really. So we're also now going to create this one here, this shape here. And it's right up against the body on the other side. I'm going to start to go in a little closer here. And then we come back over to the right. You're almost finished with making these shapes. And we're still staying on the right side to complete this elongated shape that is all the way at the bottom where the tail is. And then we just have one more small shape kind of in between. That a little bit shorter. You should have some space in between those two shapes. And we are ready to paint. Now you're probably wondering, well, how about his little whiskers? We are going to paint those in later on. So we're not going to bother drawing those in because we're just going to add them with paint. So now our next step is our background. And this is where you want to use a combination of both brushes. Our background is going to be blue and green, and it's up to you how much blue and how much green you want to use. I actually just taught this one in person, and there were people that wanted more blue because of the the water. So feel free to do that. Some people combined a combination of blue and green, which I have done that for this piece inside of here. But what I've done first is I have painted the background blue. And as you can see, this is a bit of a dark blue or more like a medium blue. So depending on the color that you have, it'll be different shades of blue, and that will look really interesting. So let's get started. So again, we're going to cover the background with blue. Then we're going to go on top with green, and then we're going to mix a little bit with green and blue. So let's get started. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing strokes going up and down. Obviously, we are working around the fish. So what I like to do is I like to actually outline the fish first using the blue. And so I picked up my bigger brush. Now you are free to use your smaller brush if that's more helpful. But basically right now we are outlining our fish. So when it gets to the smaller parts here, like the real intricate parts, that's where you might want to switch to your detail brush. I also tend at first to sort of go around with my bigger brush and then go back and do my details with my detail brush. So it's kind of like I'm kind of painting it in or around the basic part of it. But then I go back and really cut into where the smaller parts are. But take your time. I've always wanted a koi pond. I think they are so interesting. And we were talking about that at the beginning. And I think fish are interesting anyway. We don't have a fish tank or anything, but I had an aunt and an uncle growing up that had a really large fish tank. I mean, not that the koi were in it, but just different, really different fish. And I thought it was so interesting. So what I've done is I've just outlined the fish quickly. And then I'm going to go back in with my smaller brush here, my detail brush. But I'm just going to start laying down some paint. And again, what we're doing is we're doing an up and down motion with the strokes. I'm just going to move this painting a little bit so that I don't paint on top of it. And I'm also just going to adjust the camera so you can see both. Add a little more light. There we go. So I'm doing a flick of the fingers going back and forth as I go back and forth, up and down, honestly. So it's not really left to right, it's up and down. And because the background has different colors in it, in the sense of adding the green and bluish green, I'm not worried about creating a, like a sort of a gradient or anything, but you are absolutely welcome to do that. Mine is more textured. But if you were interested in doing more of a gradient, or something that was sort of blue and turns to green or something like that, or a little more of, flattened colors, you would take your time and make sure that it wasn't as textured as mine is. Just wanted to kind of put that out there in case you wanted to do it a little differently. I also had some people add some waves. So that's another option as well. Like I said, you can do some really fun things with the background. I just really enjoyed doing something a little more textured. So I'm just kind of doing a first layer here of color. And then, as I mentioned, I haven't gone back yet in order to get into some of those tighter spots. I'm just kind of going up and down. And here's the other thing. If you can't go up and down with your strokes yet, that's okay. If you need to fill in the color by going left to right with, some strokes, that's okay. You can go back over them going up and down. So we are painting the background here. Just take your time. This is the first layer. I feel like the background takes the longest in this painting. The rest of it is details. Make sure to cover the whole canvas. And then I'm going to go back in and now paint around some of the more tighter spots with the blue. And you will have to go back, and whatever you do to the rest of the background, you'll have to do in those spots as well. Let's see. Oops, I forgot all the way around here. And again, just take your time and have fun with it. And once you have the first layer, this is where you can either start adding green or green combined with blue. Now mine is still a little bit spotty and it's drying fast because I have a fan on right near me. And so if yours is drying fast or slow, just depending, if you want to even out the color, you want to go back over it with the blue. So I'm going to go over mine one more time with another layer of blue. I'm not getting it so that it's completely flat. I have, strokes in mine, but I want to leave that because I want that to be my background. As I mentioned, if you are interested in having yours be a little bit less textured, you want to add another layer and just take your time with your strokes. But now is when you want to think about adding probably a second layer with the blue. And then we're going to mix up blue and green. This is also where some people have decided to do streaks of a lighter blue. So they mix blue with white. So you have that option as well. You do want to make sure that your first layer has dried if you are reapplying your blue. Because our next layer is going to be the green or whatever different color or version of, green, greenish blue that you want. What I like to do is add the green on next and then add a little bit of some green and blue mixed together before adding it to the canvas. But as of right now, we are just adding our second layer of blue. Again, if yours is still a little too wet, you want to let it dry. You can take it and sort of bounce it up and down. If you have a hair dryer or a fan nearby, that's helpful. And then if you don't have any of those, you can take a 5-minute break and grab a beverage. All right, so now I have to wait for mine to dry a bit. That second layer. You can also kind of fan it with a piece of paper. I'm going to grab a piece of paper, I think. Now fan it with the painting I'm using tomorrow. We want to give this about 5 minutes um, to dry. In the meantime, we can mix up some other colors. So basically, there is my green. You can see my blue is next to it. So I'm going to mix a little bit of green and blue together to make another color. You can see that right there. You can see my painting is still shiny, so it's still wet. So I'm going to let it dry a little more. Oh, but if you are ready, You are welcome to start adding the green. I'm going to add light strokes of green on top of mine. So I'm getting that sort of strokes effect. So what you want to do is, you add either the greenish blue or some green on top, and you act as if you're making stripes. Kind of skipping space. And you can let the paint run out on your brush as you are swiping up and down. So you can see how it is, getting textured here. Here again, just take your time and make sure that you also go in between the spots that, are tiny so that it looks like, you're covering the whole background. So again, I think of it as stripes and I sort of skip and add green stripes all the way down. And then as it's wet, I go back and I add them a little closer. But this is also where you may want to add some blue and white together in streaks, or go back and add more blue. Again, it all depends on what you want your background to look like. At this stage, I've added lots of green. And then I'm going to go back with the blue green that I mixed together. And go over it for a third time. Again, making sure to get the whole background so that it doesn't look like the fish is sort of cut out of the background. Okay, so as you can see, mine is very, very green. And now I'm going to go back in. And I'm going to do a combination of green and blue. I'm going to add a little more blue because I want mine to be a little more subdued. And now I'm going to go over the whole thing. With that bluish green. And that's going to mute that just a little bit, but give the texture that I want. And just take your time and work from left to right, up and down. If you find that your paint is a little too thick, you can swipe your brush just a little bit into your water. Acrylics are water-based, so you can make your paints a little more moisturized by just adding a little bit of water at the tip of the brush. And here again, just keep swiping up and down in order to get those strokes. Yep, more blue here. Or I should say bluish green, blue mixed with green to make it a little more muted, but just giving that slight greenish color. And here again, just remember to go in the spots that are close to your fish so that it doesn't look like you forgot those. I feel like the background is really fun because, well, first, I can't wait to see because I know that everyone's is going to be so different. I mentioned I taught this in person with Huntington Valley Library a few weeks ago, and everyone's was so different. All right, I'm just finishing some adding touches to the blue, and then want to let this dry a little more for another 5 minutes because we're then going to start the fish. And the fish goes really fast. But there's some detail. Here again, make sure that you get the appropriate spots around the fish so that it looks like the rest of the background. I'm just adding some finishing touches around the fins. I didn't get in there enough with my green. And when you're ready, you can wash your brush off. The other thing you can do is, you can let the background sit and dry and later on go back with, some more strokes if you want. So let's let this dry for another 5 minutes. And then we're going to start with our fish using a combination of white and blue so that it is sort of a very transparent blue. So I don't know if you can see that, but it is not just white. It is light blue with some added white on top. So that is going to be our next step, is mixing up white with a hint of blue. First, let's dry, for the most part, our background. Give it another few minutes. Oh, yeah. I know, Beth. I agree. This is absolutely a background we could keep working and reworking. Yes. And I actually did that with the one when I was in person. I kept going, oh man, I'm gonna add some white. I don't know if I have that one around. I ended up not liking the background as much as this one because I messed with it too much, you know? Yeah. But I agree, when it comes to these kind of backgrounds, you can go back in. But it's best to go back in when it's drier, because if not, paint just sort of cakes on top. Or, well, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. If you want it to be more textured, that might actually look pretty neat. We're going to give it another minute. Yeah, the great thing about this background is you can go back and add different colors. Um, you know, I mean, you can always do that with acrylic, but the issue with acrylic is once it's dried, you have to go back and restart, redo it all over for the most part. But if you're just adding texture and, paint on top of paint, then it's actually it's actually pretty neat. It's fun to do that. Yeah, and I definitely did that with my first one. There were times where it was not quite dry, and I went in and I have a little more of a sort of gradient effect, or it's a little more transparent, and I like that. But then there were times I went back in and I added more blue once it was dry, and you can see that in this section here. So yeah, it's fun. Some other things that I had people add, or I didn't have them add, they did it themselves. Bubbles. Some people went back and added very tiny bubbles in white and like light blue. What else? Somebody actually added another fish popping into the corner. I thought that was really neat. I'll have to find my pictures and add them to the newsletter because they're really interesting. People got pretty creative. Oh, okay. Not a thin detail. That's okay, Debbie. We're gonna paint it on. That's the good thing about this painting. We pretty much use the paint for a lot of the detail. And so when you're ready, we're going to start mixing up our light blue, which is, it's barely blue, I should say, really. It's white with a tiny smidge of blue. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the body of the fish first. And so I use my detail brush for that. If you have a smaller flat brush, feel free to use that. But I use my detail brush. Um, this is where the detail brush really gets some use. So I'm going to start off with some white, and I'm going to mix up enough for the body. I'm going to move my black here. And you're probably thinking, well, why are we painting white on top of canvas? Because it's not exactly white. It's more like an incredibly light blue, like a tinge of blue. See how that's kind of a tinge? And then we paint white on top of it even. So our first step is to paint the body and around the reddish orange shapes, because those, we are going to be adding red to those shapes as well. But our first step is to paint this tinge of white with just a little bit of blue. And this is where you want to take your time, because now we are creating the body of the fish. So just take your time going around the shapes. And again, this is white with just a tinge of blue. Tiny bit. We are going to go back and make parts just a little more darker blue. Not dark blue at all, but just a little more of a tinge. And then we're going to add white. So here's where, adding a little bit of water to your paint would probably work well. I'm going to scroll in even closer now, so you can see my light blue fish. Takes a little concentration as you're getting towards, up against the background there. Right, traveling down towards the tail now. And then when you are ready, you're going to add a little more of a tinge of blue so that it's just a shade darker. That shade darker is really just going to be like that, just a little bit darker. And you're going to use that to kind of go along the sides of the body, right up against the background. Basically, you're just making it a little bit darker, almost like it's just a little bit of a shadow there. And the same on the other side. So I'm going to make this just a little bit darker blue so you can see that. So what I mean is, do you see how that's just a slight shade darker? We're going to add that kind of around the shapes as well. So again, you should see just a slight tinge of this blue along the edge, both sides of the body. Fish. I do go down toward the tail, and I make a lot of that this color blue. So this is the body towards the tail, and I really make that a little more blue using this new blue. Now it doesn't have to be around every single shape because now we're actually going to go back in with white. And we're going to make some spots a little whiter, starting with the tip of the nose, meaning sort of the top of the head here. So we're now going to be brightening up the top part of the fish, this sort of flat part, right at the top of its head. So you can see they got pretty white at the top. But now what you're going to do throughout the rest of it, of the fish, is you're going to add some white throughout, but you want it to look, let me see if I can show this. Showing this up close because you can still see the blue shining through. And that's because I added white, but let the blue shine through as well. So it's whiter toward the top part and then this part where the eye is. And we flip over and add just strokes of white. So basically what you want to do is very similar to what we were doing with the background, but instead of going up and down, sort of just do areas that are a little brighter with the white, but then sort of going on top a little bit with just a little bit of white. I like to sort of take my brush and use a little bit of water to lighten the white to make it a little more transparent. So I'm kind of very lightly going over parts of the blue. Because we don't want anything, parts of it solid white, except a little closer to the top part, maybe just a brighter white on this right side where the full eye is. That's about it. And here toward this section. And just work your way through the rest of the body, just adding some sections of white. Sometimes I kind of frame out or go up against one side of a shape. Like down here at the bottom where the tail is, I kind of outline just a little bit in white. Outlining the shapes, I should say. Just making little parts of them a little more white. So you can see that the body is now bluish white. And this again, you can, let this dry and go back and add some more white or blue to your liking. Because our next step is now going to be to let this dry a little bit. And to now mix up a light blue for the first layer of all of our fins. So using that same blue, but adding a tinge more of blue. This is our first layer. So now it's going to be a little more of baby blue, like this. And that's going to be, you're going to paint a flat layer of color on all of the fins. Now you can do this with either brush. Whatever one you feel more comfortable with. We're painting all of the fins this flat color of light blue, but the light blue is a little bit darker than the blue that we've been using. We add a little more blue to it. So I guess it's kind of like the blue we used as a shadow color on the body. This one. So at first we're just going over the shapes. And then we're going to come back and add some white into here, some white and blue to make it a little more, look a little more transparent. And here again, this depends on your brush. I tend to use the side of my flat brush, but you may want to use your detail brush, or you may want to go in between both of them. But this next step is painting all of these fins. This blue. This is also where you can do a little touch up on the body if you need to. And the other parts. And we are going to take a second and we're going to add, we're going to let this dry just a little bit. And we are going to add our black eyes. Now this is done with your detail brush using the point of your brush. And you're just going to very carefully paint the eye on the left and then the one on the right. One. Here's the other one. And obviously while we have the black, you can also make um, the little whiskers, but you want to make sure to use some water to almost get it to like an ink consistency. And the way that I'm doing the eyes is I kind of like dot my brush along the inside shape of the eye. I'm going to go a lot closer now. And then to make the outside, I'm going to very slowly touch my brush barely to the canvas using the point. Now you can get a tinier brush for this if you have it. And the other point is to also outline the body on the right side. Again, using the point of the brush. We're going to go to where the first fin is. And just add a little bit of black. And then underneath the next fin. And you can leave this out if you want. Even add a tiny bit. So we're just staying here on the right side. Very lightly, kind of outlining. We still have the orange to do and the red. So any mistakes you make, you might be able to cover that up. We still have the other orange fin to do, the one that is sort of coming out of the big fin here, or the big spot. So we're going to let those fins dry, and we're going to go to the spots now. And those spots are mostly orange, but then we're going to be mixing red in with the orange. So what I mean is, first you're going to go on each of the spots and paint them orange. Every single one of them. So your first layer is going to be orange on your spots. Now, we still haven't finished with the fins yet, but we're letting those dry a little bit. And then we're going to go back to those when we let these dry. But we want that first layer of orange. And just take your time. Okay, start looking like fish now. And you're painting all the spots orange at first. We're going to let them dry just a little bit. We're going to go back in with reddish orange, which will be mixing our red with our orange to get a little more of like a tomato red. Ah, now, once you have the orange done, the first layer, you then want to go back to the fins, and we're going to use white, just white. And we're now going to make our fins have some white stripes. And you can start to go outside a little bit of the shape of your fins. So this is our next layer is going to be some white stripes on top of each fins. Not real stripes, but like it looks like hairy stripes. That makes sense? Is that weird? Like this. And you're going to really start to extend the edges to make it look a little more like a fin. And then our last step for that is going to be sort of a peach color with the orange and the white. So I'm using my detail brush right now. And remember to go into the tail. And the really tiny, thin one, you just want to go over that with white. That one's going to stay light. Okay, and then your next step is going to be using a bit of that white and some of the orange to make sort of a peach color. So we have a few layers on the fins. We then have this peach color that's going to go kind of where a little bit where the blue is, but also, you know, it doesn't really matter exactly. We just want to make sort of stripes with it. So this is that peach color. And this is just kind of a real quick and light. You can see it's kind of light because now it looks like the blue. It's sort of transparent. You know, and you can even go back in with some orange, straight orange, and add a little bit to each fin. But what I do is I kind of hover a little bit, hover the point of my brush, and just do really quick strokes kind of in the sky or in the air, not in the sky. And our second to final part is going to be creating that other fin. That is, we're going to kind of paint that on with orange. And later on, we're just going to add a little bit of orange and white, or I'm sorry, orange and red. So it kind of looks like a hand. Sort of a line coming out, and then we have these little, I'm going to add some red so you can see here. And once you get the orange, you can then make it a little more peach. Because then we'll go back in and add dark around this one here. But first, we're adding orange and then kind of like peach. And it's going to look a little bit like a hand. It's going to be lighter. And coming from this one right here, this spot. Yep, that's a top fin. Yep, absolutely. Yep, and when you're finished with that one, you're going to mix red and orange together. Because you're then going to work around that top fin, but you're going to start off on the other fins, or the, I'm sorry, not the fins, the other spots. And you're going to add a mixture of red and orange. So that it's sort of a tomato red. You know, and parts of it can be a little more orange. Be kind of a mixture. See how I'm showing that? See how it's a mixture of like the tomato red and a little bit of orange too, so that it looks a little more realistic. It's not all just the one color. You know, and here again, you might want to go back later on as it's drying or as it has dried and add a little more red to certain parts of the shape. But you definitely want to make the middle one a little more red, the middle shape here. And you're going to paint around the fin so that the fin is a lighter orange and it sticks out from the shape that it's coming from. So I'm doing that now here. Everyone's good with another 5 minutes. We will be finishing up. Can't wait to see what these look like. Okay, almost. Here again, you know, as that fin is extending to your water, you want to make sure the background shape is again that tomato red and outlining it. Getting down to the bottom here. I know we're all concentrating on these little shapes. Feel like if I talk, it's like one wrong move. And it turns into a blob shape. Okay, and then like I said, with the middle fin here, you can add some more orange. Even a little bit of reddish orange. And then as you're getting to the bottom where, it's like these little spread out, almost looks like a hand, you can add a little bit of white. On top. And you will have something like this. Now I'm going to go back and add a little more of reddish orange to here. You can also go around here and add some black on the other side of the body, like we did with the with the other side of the body, just outlining a little bit of black, and then also the whiskers. So that would look a little bit like, just going on the tip a little bit. Just add a little bit there. So I'm so curious to see what everyone looks like. So I'm going to stop the recording.